always ask ourselves three questions, why are we doing this campaign, or why are we going to do a specific task, right? It was a lot of fun to take up those campaigns and execute it from time to time. Of course, a lot of failures and learnings along the way. Build a legacy of sorts. So we wanted something that would really stick to us, that would explain what we do. It was sort of revolutionizing in many ways in one when it came to online learning. You really don't think in that direction. You just suddenly start thinking that, what if you could do ABC instead of ABCD? But it's also about, thinking differently. Our initiatives have always been tailored around the sentiments of our learners, and that sort of is the ethos of our brand. We believe that everybody is a learner, everybody wants to be successful.
Dear listeners, this is your host Siddharth Aluwalia, founder of 100x Entrepreneur Podcast. Before we begin, I would like to thank our sponsors, Prime Venture Partners. Prime is the first institutional investor in category-creating tech startups like Dozy, Planet Spark, Neo, MyGate. Prime is now investing out of its fourth fund, which is more than $100 million. Today, I have with me Shripati Acharya, Managing Partner, Prime Venture Partners. Shripati, we would like to know from you, how does Prime work with the founders, and what is so different about Prime from other VC firms?
So Prime is a high conviction, high support VC. And so our process is different both during the evaluation and after the investment is made. During the evaluation, it's less of a typical Q&A, but more of a joint brainstorm where we are jointly looking and brainstorming on what the product could be and what the ultimate vision of the company could be in terms of its impact. And in the process, entrepreneurs engage with all the Prime partners. And this is very important because after the investment is made, the entrepreneurs can engage with individual partners directly who can assist in different areas. For example, we had a company which was looking for a US go-to-market. And there we helped the company directly connect with prominent Valley angels and get an investment from prominent VCs there so that they could not only get an investor base, but also develop an ecosystem partnership in the US, which was very helpful to the company. So in that fashion, the engagement is both deeper and more intimate with the founders once we have entered the company.
Thank you, Shripati. Dear listeners, let's dive directly into the podcast now. Today, I have with me Karan Shroff, partner and chief marketing officer, Unacademy. Unacademy is India's leading education platform. Karan was the head of brand marketing at Xiaomi before joining Unacademy. He was also named as Marketer of the Year by Economic Times in 2021. Today, we'll be talking about marketing and how Unacademy became the most loved edtech platform in India. Welcome, Karan, to the podcast.
Thank you, Siddharth. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot.
Karan, would love to know your journey, where you grew up, and how did marketing interest you?
I grew up in Bangalore. I think the early years of my life, I spent quite a lot of time in Mumbai because that's where my mom is from. And so the summer holidays used to be there. But I grew up in Bangalore, more or less. So Bangalore boy at heart. I think the early years of marketing I spent, doing events. So I was into event management for a major period of my career. I even worked with Whiscraft. I ran my own company for a short period of time. And then, of course, the transition happened from events to marketing, gradually. People asked me, hey, you're doing events. Would you be up for taking more work, in the marketing domain? And I said, why not? And there was, of course, a steep learning curve, but here I am. I think I figured that it was a lot of fun to take up those campaigns and execute it from time to time. Of course, a lot of failures and learnings along the way. But I think the transition was not something I planned, definitely. It just happened, over the course of time.
And how did you and Unacademy decided, to partner in 2019?
Yeah, I think it's a very funny story, and I've never shared this before. But I think so I got a call from Unacademy, first, and I of course did not know about the edtech sector of the time, and I had no clue of what the brand was doing or was sort of capable of at the time. So I think I said no. I don't want to join. I'm happy at Xiaomi, and I'm going to continue my journey here for whatever period. Although I was looking for a change at the time, I wanted something more challenging and something more exciting. I'd spent about 5 years at Xiaomi, and I'd learned a lot in the company, and I was looking at the next set of challenges. So Unacademy did come along, and I said, no, let me look at a few more options. And I was exploring a couple of options with a couple of pretty well established big companies at the time. And then I got another call, and they said, Gaurav wants to meet you. Why don't you just come down, for a courtesy meeting and see how things go. And I said, sure. I mean, why wouldn't I want to meet Gaurav? And by the time I'd actually asked a few people around saying, hey, do you know of Unacademy? And, to my ignorance, I think a lot of people knew about Unacademy at the time, and they said, oh, it's the next big thing. A lot of great things are going to happen, at this brand. So it did drive us, a lot of intrigue for me. And then I met Gaurav. It was supposed to be a 1 hour meeting, and we spoke for a few hours. We hit it off, from a brand perspective. We had the same vision, and he was always thinking larger than life, and bigger than most people had spoken to at the time, right? And I just walked out with a job offer on the same day. So then the next thing I had to do was I had to just confirm as to when I'm going to join. So it was a very surprising turn of events for me, wherein I was exploring multiple opportunities, but it was again not something that I had planned, that I would join an academy or I'd take it up. But it seemed like a very, very exciting brand, to work on. It was a clean slate. It was a different kind of challenge. Gaurav is a visionary, so all of those things added up for me, and it was a very impulsive decision at the time. When I walked out with the offer, but I thought about it later, and of course confirmed it to Gaurav again, and here I am. So it was a very interesting turn of events, at the time, for me.
And among all the marketing campaigns that you have executed, which marketing campaign is most close to your heart?
Um, I'm not saying this because I'm in an academy right now, but I think Let's Crack It, for what it's become. Uh, at the time we were trying to build a brand, an ethos of sorts, and build a legacy of sorts. So we wanted something that would really stick to us, that would explain what we do. We did not want to, go out and, say, okay, blah, blah, blah. We wanted the tagline to talk about what we do. We wanted the campaign to talk about what we do. And Let's Crack It just felt so right. When the first time, we heard it, we came up with it, and we chose it, and we said, okay, this is what we're going to do. There were multiple options at the time. I think the Let's Crack It played a huge role for us because, I spent a couple of months with the company, and every time I would hear, the product team, the business team, Gaurav, all of these guys saying, listen, we have to empower students. We have to democratize education. We have to be a part of their journey. It was never that, hey, you go crack an exam or you do it. It was always about us being a part of their, learning curve and taking them through that journey. And hence the Let's played a huge, role in that entire equation. That said, I think crack it, of course, is a lingo that everybody uses. So it just became something that people have started using, time and again. And the way the campaign unfolded, the anthem that we, sort of dropped at the time, the ad creatives. I mean, if you look at one of the campaigns, wherein there's this girl who's an aspiring student, and preparing for an exam. She tells her mother, and she's working at a family restaurant. She tells her mother that, I'm going to move. I'm going to go to my class and study. And she kind of goes out of the restaurant, gets into her car, and you just think that she's going to drive away. But for the first time on television, she actually sits, plugs in her phone, and then just starts her class and just phases out from the rest of the world. So it was sort of revolutionizing in many ways in one when it came to online learning. So I think that campaign was very close to my heart. We saw a lot of momentum, a lot of students, learn about Unacademy at the time, and we saw an outflow of or an outpour of traffic coming onto the platform. So it was a campaign that was very close. It was a very important campaign for the brand, very important campaign for me. And we had to get it right. So there was a lot riding on it. There was a lot of pressure. At the same time, I think what we managed to do as a unit, as a team, at the time, and a very small team that we had at the time, was phenomenal. So I think this is one campaign that's been extremely close to my heart.
And we have all loved that campaign. Coming back to because I have known Gaurav personally. We both were part of a Morpheus gang that was kind of India's first accelerator. So when he sold Flat.io and was just about to start an academy with Himish, I was my startup Adodoc was part of the gang. So and at that point in time, how Gaurav has evolved, right? It's been a phenomenal journey seeing him evolve. And when I conducted a podcast with him on 100x Entrepreneur in 2019, believe me, I have never seen such an entrepreneur so driven and so uh, passionate about learning. His whole schedule, I think, where learning is a key part of his routine. uh, at that point in time, I think he showed me his iPad, which had like 10,000 notes. I think today that would have 50,000 notes because we sometime, right? And there at that point in time, he was just absorbing from wherever he could. So for you, Karan, right, what have you absorbed from Gaurav and Unacademy culture in the last couple of years or 3 years?
Yeah. I think one thing that Gaurav, always would tell us is ask the right questions. Keep asking. A lot of times you don't ask stuff, and you completely miss it. So, I've seen him question things that sometimes you haven't even thought of, right? Like hypothetically, it could be that, you're always thinking, okay, we have a budget and we're going to spend, let's say, 100 rupees on a campaign, right? Or $100 on a campaign. And usually the negotiations are, okay, let's spend 80, let's spend 90, let's spend 70, and there are times that Gaurav, would ask, what if you spend $110? And you really don't think in that direction. You just suddenly start thinking that, oh, what if you could do ABC instead of ABCD? And it's not about spending more money, but it's also about, thinking differently. So a lot of questions that he would ask, time and again would trigger thoughts and hence make you think a lot of things. I think that was one aspect. The second was being relentless, taking difficult calls. Even if it's not easy. Being having the heart to make those kind of decisions time and again. Sometimes you get so far deep vested into projects and campaigns that you build. That you start to kind of connect with them emotionally, and even though they might not be the best for the brand or best for what you do from a business point of view, you're personally vested and hence you pull it through. But he's someone who totally believes in himself, his decisions, and I think being relentless and taking those hard decisions time to time is something that I've learned. So when you're kind of running a startup or an ecosystem that is so massive and there are so many decisions to be made, and the urgency of taking the decision and taking the right one, and not fearing it, having the heart to back it up, believing in yourself, all of these things, and taking the calculated risk time and again. So I think all of these things and a lot more, it's very difficult to summarize on one call or on a simple answer. But I think every meeting with him is a learning experience in many ways than one. The same applies to a lot of leaders in the ecosystem, be it Gaurav or a lot of other entrepreneurs out there. But having exposure to Gaurav at the level that I've had, I think in the last 2.5 years, it's made me more of an entrepreneur. Of course, marketing was something that I always did, but it's made me learn a lot of things, from traits or leadership perspective, that I'll always, take back and use in my day-to-day life.
And as a marketer, right, at one point in time, you're busy juggling meetings, managing teams. At other point in time, You have to find creativity within you. Where do you draw your inspiration from, and what's the process of tapping into it?
I think it's pretty simple, and I've kind of answered this in the past. We always ask ourselves three questions. Why are we doing this campaign, or why are we going to do a specific task, right? Once we know the why, then we ask, okay, what are we going to do? Okay, and then the answer is, okay, we're going to do A, B, C, D. And then ultimately, it's about the execution. So then we say, okay, how are we going to do? Who are the people who are going to work on it? Do we need a celebrity? Do we go in normally? What's the thought process? So, and all of these things are usually keeping, and in all cases, keeping the learners at the heart of everything that we do, right? So I think it's pretty simple when you talk about perspective, or how we define or choose a campaign, and why would we execute a specific task. We ask ourselves these three questions as to why are we doing it first, and if the why doesn't stand out, if it's not important enough, you have 50 tasks that you're chasing, and if it doesn't stand out, if it's not good enough, then we don't pursue it. So this applies to everything that we do, out there. So why, what, and then ultimately how you're going to execute.
And this was more on a campaign basis, but on a personal level, if you have to answer this, how would it be?
I think this is at a personal level, Siddharth. So it's something that I've followed time and again, and through my career, and I've had debates on this with people, and time to time, standing on these beliefs. Look, you're responsible for spending companies' money. You're responsible for crafting the image that you do out there for a brand. I mean, any lever that you pull on a marketing front today would directly impact the imagery of a brand tomorrow, right? Instantly, good or bad. And so, if you don't answer these questions, be it at a personal level, or a brand level, it's very difficult to sort of, differentiate. And I take my work very personally. So I think, hence the seamlessness overall, from a decision making perspective. I think it's very critical to keep the learners or the consumers at the heart of everything that you do. Maintain honesty in your communication, and at the same time, delivering that message that the business wants to deliver. With absolute honesty and transparency. So it's very critical to marry all of these things, and hence to answer those three questions. And as long as you don't have those clear answers, I don't think you should go ahead with the campaign. So it's very, very critical to get those parameters in check, no matter how small or big a task is. But once you have it, it's very easy to move forward, because every milestone that you cross, then you know that this is the objective of what we're doing, and hence you have that clarity and the vision to drive it.
And one thing which is very visible in what you are speaking is authenticity married with audacity, right? So where does this audacity come from? As a marketer, I have studied your work. It comes out very authentic, right? But the audacity of ambitions and goals.
I think it's always about building a legacy brand. You don't aim small, and you're never going to achieve more than you dream of. So it's always important to aim larger than ever. So I mean, and it applies to most people, right? So I think you never set out to say, okay, we're going to build a campaign that should just have 1 million views, or probably just have 1% reach, or just reach 5 students, or so and so. You're always aiming to say, okay, I'm going to reach the entire country. I'm going to clock 100 million views. I'm going to make it viral. So I think it's about dreaming big. It's about dreaming larger than life, having the courage to dream that way, and sort of set those milestones for yourself. And that also comes from a place of belief. Of course, we have a great product, and that gives us confidence to go out there and market ourselves, and put ourselves out there, on for the audience, to kind of decide. But I think the more than audacity, I would call it the confidence to drive these initiatives. One comes from product, two from what the learners keep telling us on how they love an academy time and again. We're more of a pull brand than a push brand, so these guys genuinely follow us, and they love the brand for what it is, right? So that gives us the confidence, and then keeping the legacy in mind, of what we want to do and achieve, over the course of time. We always set out, tasks and ambitions that are beyond the normal parameters, or stuff that we gun for. So I think it's about dreaming big, and chasing those dreams. So even if you fall short, you've still covered a significant ground. So I think that's the vision, or I would say, the confidence with which we approach every campaign, or every marketing initiative.
Not only educators and learners, but everyone loves marketing initiatives and campaigns of an academy. How did you discover the secret sauce which helped you connect with all hearts?
Yeah. So I think, again, and drawing from the last answer, our initiatives have always been tailored around the sentiments of our learners. And that sort of is the ethos of a brand. We believe that everybody is a learner, everybody wants to be successful. And if you look at our films, hence like The Greatest Lesson, which featured Sachin, and over 2 decades of his career, such a glorified career, and the best, cricketer to walk the earth. But nobody spoke about his failures and the amount of times he fell, and sort of, again got back up, and chased, and achieved more and more every time he fell, right? So I think that rigor, that persistence, that drive, all of those things. So it's not just about, putting out a campaign. It's about keeping the learners at the heart of it, understanding their sentiments, what they go through on a day-to-day basis. They're facing rejections time and again. And somehow, Siddharth, this is sort of true for all of us in life. Every time we set out for a target which is ambitious, you face a lot of failures, you face a lot of rejections. You're told time and again that you can't achieve it, right? So I think, to build a brand that connects with the consumers or the learners at a human level, from a heart, I think that's why our campaigns resonate the most, with people. Even our film IPL, cracking the game, for example, nobody was using footage in the manner that we decided to use. We tied learning to cricket, and there was learning in cricket at all times. There are different kinds of learning in cricket at all times. And it was widely loved by everyone, because suddenly, you're packaging something which is a sport which is very close to the country, and tying it to learning, which is a constant in everybody's life. So I think all our campaigns, they've been always packaged and presented, keeping the learner at the heart of it. And somewhere all of us are learners, at heart. So I think that's where, it resonates the most, with people. And I'm glad to hear you say this, that people love the brand Unacademy so much.
Karan, you, Gaurav, and everyone in academy uh, use the terminology that let's build an iconic brand. What do you mean by an iconic brand, and where does it come from? And my last question on it is, what are the 5 tenets of marketing for any startup that need to be followed to build an iconic brand?
Yeah. I think an iconic brand is one that the consumers believe in, right? So let me draw a couple of examples. When like a Nike, or an Apple today, when they come out with any product, you immediately trust their communication. When they say it's good, you say yes, it's good, right? You believe it, and you go out there, and you kind of, you're willing to invest in whatever the product is. So I think, this is something that comes from a point of consistency. So I think one of the tenets would be consistency in communication. So irrespective of, no matter how long the brand has been at it, I think maintaining a consistent communication is very, very important. So I think consistency plays a huge role. With that comes honesty, which is the second important parameter. So why do you trust brands? Time and again, over the course of years or multiple campaigns, when they're honest about their communication, and they're consistently talking about the same message time and again, like Nike has been delivering campaigns after campaigns. But if you look at one thing that is consistent in their messaging, is about being fit and talking about how everybody is an athlete, right? So I think similarly, Apple always consistently is talking about innovation, right? So and bringing in new technology, and then staying true to that communication. So honesty plays a huge role, which is the second tenet that I would say. The third, very important thing, which somewhere, people sort of miss in the balance, would be that the business vision and the brand vision need to always be aligned. So I think this is very critical. I mean, if your business vision is let's say, covering a specific task, and if you're not, aligned with the same, vision or a communication from a marketing front, then they're going to be very, very different and challenging, campaigns that you're going to put out there, because you're also setting expectations for the consumer in a very, different parameter. So your vision needs to be extremely aligned, with the business, and then coming to the consumer, or in our case, the learners at the end of it, is always about having them at the heart of everything. So when you're making a communication, when you're putting, and then lastly, of course, it's a vision. So, not rolling out something without having a vision. Usually people always look at, short-term gains, but they have long-term damages, right? So I think it's about maintaining that vision, wherein you look at the long-term damage, or look at the long-term gains that it has. A lot of brands that have put themselves out there have had a vision, have built campaigns keeping 10, 15 years ahead, a timeline of 10, 15 years ahead in their mind. So I think the vision is the fifth, parameter overall. So, just to summarize, I think, honesty, consistency in communication, the business and brand vision always being aligned, and ensuring that comes through from a transparency perspective in your communication. Looking at short-term, losses, or short-term gains versus long-term losses. So, always ensuring that it doesn't have a damage in the long run, and hence taking tactical calls today. Ensuring that the consumer is at the heart of everything that you do, and then ultimately having a vision. So every time you plan a campaign, look at 10 years from now. If it's something that your brand would not do or be in, then don't do it today. So, all of these things are sort of principles that we follow time and again, when we go out there and build brands.
And Karan, I have seen in an academy office one of your leadership principles, or the tenets that you follow. That is, one is unlearn, learn, unlearn, learn, and that keeps on repeating. So, what is that you have unlearned? You know, when since you have joined an academy, and what are the three key things that you have learned?
I think it's going to be hard to put it in that way. I think one of the things I unlearned, was, it's not what you can do. It's not about or what you've done. It's always about what you can do next, right? So I think that's one of the things I learned. So it's not about everything that you've done in the past, or everything that you've sort of put out there. um, it's always about what you do next, right? And this is something which is very important. I mean, no one's going to remember the number of games you won till yesterday, but they're going to talk about how you perform today, or how many games you're going to win in the future. So I think it's also an unlearning and also learning in many ways than one, wherein you kind of learn to keep everything that you've done aside, and just look at the tasks on hand that are in the future, or coming up for yourself. Um, Another principle that we strongly follow is, we're not a sports, we're not a family. Most people, while leading a team, they say, okay, we're a family, we're going to get together and work. Well, we're not a family. We're a sports team. You know, uh, and only the best get to play the game. So it's constantly. If you look at any sports team that's out there, discipline, following through, and one person, lagging on performance affects the whole team. So the best get to play the game, and that applies to every team, within the org. So we ensure that we're a sports team. We follow that principle, time and again. And a sports team also, respects each other. They respect each other's players. The other players, they back each other. They're always with each other. And they perform together, not individually in silos. So there are a lot of things to learn, on from how a sports team functions, and it's the best way to operate from a um, uh, from a functional perspective. So I think the second thing would be we're not a family, we're a sports team. And third thing is, of course, to be relentless. Don't stop. Just keep pushing, and you really don't know where and when what would click and how that would deliver for you. So at times, at most cases, what I've learned, at least in the last few years, and of course at my stint at Unacademy, the places where you stop or you're about to give up is where the magic happens. So just being relentless and pushing that last mile through, even if you're going down, go down fighting, be relentless. I think eventually that triggers a lot more results. I think one thing that the difference between 100 and 99 is just one. So I think it's about pushing that parameter time and again. So the difference between a century it's just one. So you've covered all the distance. Why not be relentless and push through further? So I think these are the three things. To sort of never stop hustling, being a sports team, and also look at the future. What is done, in the past, and look at what you can do next and how you can perform and contribute in every day of your life, looking at what's coming next.
How has the marketing for Unacademy evolved in the last couple of years to support, the dynamic need of the business and the dynamic need of the learner?
Yeah. So I think digital learning has increased significantly. A few years ago we would talk about democratizing education, and that's truly happening today. So people from or students from the smallest towns or villages, different remote parts of India, thanks to technology and internet reaching different parts of India. We're able to give them education in different parts of India. So with digital learning, being at the forefront of things and increasing, and the adoption being going up time and again, day to day, we've looked at also reaching them digitally, right? So I think that's one parameter that has changed. So our marketing initiatives have also been crafted in a more approachable way, more relatable way. They're quirky. For example, the IPL campaign that I spoke about some time back. Tying IPL, which is something that reaches the remotest parts of India, but also making it quirky, making it relatable at the same time. That makes us relevant in the daily lives of students. So it plays a huge role. Again, if you look at the why, what, and how, all of these things sort of marry in. They're keeping the communication consistent. Keeping the learners at the heart of everything that we do, making it relatable. All of these parameters trigger. And sort of has helped us evolve as a brand over the course of time. Lastly, given the digital age that we are living in and how, everybody has an access to a smartphone and internet today, social media is one of the most common tools and platforms that are used by learners or students. And typically, if you look at it, it's not used from from an amplification. Social media is not used by learners from a point of view that they want to come there and again be told, hey, go back and study. They use it to sort of de-stress or take a break. So keeping those parameters in mind, we always aim at making content that inspires them, engages them, helps them unwind. So all of these things, digitally reaching out to them, making the campaigns approachable, quirky, relatable, using social media to understand and communicate with our learners, be a brand of heart, not be pushy, because they're there to kind of de-stress and take that break. Consistent communication, being relevant with the learners, keeping them at the heart of everything. These are things that we've sort of incorporated over the course of the last 24 odd months in staying relevant with our learners. Another critical thing which is sort of constant is that the pandemic has played a huge role in stressing everybody out. Everybody, at the highest level, and even the learners and everybody that's involved. There's no choice, right? So I think understanding them, having that empathy, and connecting with them at a personal level, that's something that we've done constantly. If you look at our films, Siddharth, like the Greatest Lesson by Sachin, or even the recent one that we launched with Dhoni, lesson number 7. Now, these are life lessons. These are not, things that people would just use in their, education or preparation, right? This is something that students would carry through, as a learning in their life. And I think that's very important, because when you empower them and nurture them in the right direction, more often than not, they're going to make the right decisions. So I think being relevant, constant communication, consistency, honest in being honest in your communication, all of these are parameters that we've sort of imbibed over the last 2 odd years, and that sort of helped us
Any timeless
build and
marketing
evolve as a
advice
brand
that you would like
time
to
and
share
again.
with
So you're
startups
always moving with the
trying to work
consumer,
on their
keeping them
branding
at the
and
heart of
marketing?
everything and planning everything basis that.
Any timeless marketing advice that you would like to share with startups trying to work on their branding and marketing?
I think honest. Be honest. I think it's a most critical thing. If your product doesn't do something that you're claiming in an advertisement or a communication, then don't do it. So don't talk about it. So I think being honest is a very very important thing, because and people have said this time and again. Consumers are not fools; they see through everything. So it's very very important to be honest. I think the moment you start with that, a lot of things get difficult, and a lot of things also get easier eventually. So being honest is very very important.
Thank you so much, Karan. It's been a pleasure hosting you on 100x Entrepreneur podcast. Thank you so much sharing your, your wisdom, your experience building iconic brand. Uh, you know, it's been fantastic to host you on the 100x Entrepreneur podcast.
Thank you, Siddharth, and it was a pleasure being here and talking to you. uh, and then hopefully we get to meet in better times.
Absolutely.